let's take a look at the Philips Avent 3-in-1 Steam Sterilizer. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Clueless Dad. Today I'm going to demonstrate the Philips Avent 3-in-1 Steam Sterilizer. So this is a baby bottle sterilizer in the Philips Avent system. So if you're familiar with this, it's actually really good. We've been using it. These bottles actually I've had since before my son was born, which would have been end of 2016. So going on 3.5 years almost. And obviously we didn't use them a lot because they're still in pretty good shape. But now I have a second kid, and I just got this a couple of months ago from my friend. Thank you, Anna. So it's actually a hand-me-down. You can tell it's a little bit worn, a little bit faded, but it's still working really good. And this thing has been around since at least 2011. I've seen, articles and reviews of it since back then. So that's going on 9 years. And their newest ones I've seen are only a year or two old. So I think either this exact version or the slightly newer version is still on sale. If you can find it secondhand, I think it's actually pretty fine to buy secondhand because there's not really much to go wrong with it. So let's talk about what this guy does. Let's talk about how it works, and I'll show you the different parts in between. So for all the clueless dads out there who were like me before, let me explain something. First of all, before you put any formula or pumped milk into a baby bottle to give it to baby, you definitely want to make sure that the bottle is sterilized. You want to make sure there's no bacteria inside, etc. So you need to, of course, wash it with soap and water, and then you need to sterilize it. So there's several different types of sterilizers on the market. When we're in Japan, we actually use like the tank with the really, really mild, I guess it's bleach in there to disinfect. There's also the microwave kind, which are basically the same. They're basically steamers. They get the water to boil inside, and it gets steam, and the steam will kill all the bacteria. And that's exactly what this does as well. So there's a hot plate down here at the bottom with a heating element, and you plug it into the wall, and the water will start boiling off. Steam will rise through this. In this case, there's actually multiple chambers, which I'll show in a second. That steam will pass through, and it'll come out a little vent on the top. And pretty much anything that's inside there will be sterilized if you put it in right, and obviously if you leave it in the whole time. And it'll know exactly when to stop because basically it knows when the water is boiled off, and there's a thermal switch in there which turns itself off. So that's why you need a steamer, and let me explain why this is a pretty good steamer. So first of all, the name of this one is the 3-in-1 steamer because there's basically 3 configurations. Not that there's 3 chambers, but there's 3 configurations. So basically you have a lid, you've got this tall kind of upper rack which has a place for nipples and rings, and it also has this kind of handle on the top. And then you have the deeper one, which obviously can hold taller things like these bottles, and it's really basic inside, as you can see. And then you have the base plate with the hot plate on it. And so you can use this guy if you have a newborn and you only have really small bottles, or you only need to maybe disinfect things like teething rings or pacifiers, etc. You could just use in this configuration, just put the top on. But interestingly enough, you can't do it this way. But there is actually a hole here, so there's a handle in there as I showed you, and you can actually do this. So you can sort of save a little bit of space by doing it that way. I guess it's made that way on purpose. So it stores slightly smaller, and then when you want to actually use it in the full size, you can also do it this way too, by the way. You can have all kinds of choices, so that's fun, right? But it's just nice to be versatile. But I think the really big benefit of this thing is it's cavernous. So you can fit like 6 bottles, 6 big bottles, 6 small bottles, whatever. In there, you can fit up to 6 nipples or a combination of small bottles and nipples in there. There's even a nice clip on the top, which you can use to get these top covers in there. So you can fit everything, basically. Obviously, there's all these holes here for the steam to pass through and basically go through the nipple and get into the covers and whatnot and totally disinfect the insides of the bottles. You want to have everything pointed downwards so that like the mouth of the bottle is resting on the bottom, whether it's this one or this one. But interestingly enough, there's actually a pattern cut out here too. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but that is supposed to be in the shape of a nipple so that you know that the nipples are supposed to go here. And this one is actually likewise in the shape of a bottle so that you know that the bottles go here. So the question is, could you also put a nipple here? I think you probably could. And obviously you can also put the bottles there, but kind of keep it straight, I guess. Yeah, not so bad. Kind of nice, interesting design choice. So let me really quickly talk about my experience with this particular unit and sort of my impressions and review of it. So I'll be honest, we actually haven't used this that much. This unit is a couple years old, but I got it as a gift from my friend Anna, who has 2 kids, and she used it extensively. She didn't need any more. She knew we had a second kid on the way, so she said, hey, do you guys want this? I said, sure, why not? So once we brought our baby back from Japan, our second baby, we actually started using this, and we were really impressed with it. Super fast, super quick, and it fits specifically with these Avent bottles, which we use here. In Japan, because you can't buy these in Japan, we were using the pigeon glass bottles, which are also pretty good and would totally actually work in here. But yes, specifically made for these, so even better. Okay, so let me just quickly demonstrate how this guy works. It's pretty simple. Basically, you just want to fill in water here on this hot plate element. And it says 100 milliliters, or you can just fill it up till it gets to the edge, and there's like a little mark here which says max. And basically that'll boil off once you push this button when it's plugged in. And it's 0 feedback, no tuning or anything like that. So pretty much what you want to do is you want to take your 100 milliliters, you want to fill it in, don't overfill it so that it makes a mess, don't underfill it to make sure that there's enough steam going through. But pretty much 100 milliliters, give or take maybe 10 or 20 is enough. So it's pretty much to the edge. So in this case, I'm going to put this inside. You get this guy loaded up. I'll do 2 bottles and our pump. I'll put the pump part down here. Of course, again, you want to put everything facing down. And then in the upper part, I will put, separating everything, I'll put the nipples down first, and then the rings on top, and then I'll clip these covers on. I have plenty of space, so I don't even need to do that. But just for the sake of organization, because I'm anal retentive, I'll do it that way.
It's time for home improvement with the anal retentive carpenter.
And let's also get this part of the pump in there. I forgot what they call this, like the flower petal part or whatever. So we'll just put that in there, and we'll get our diaphragm from the pump and this other cover part. So pretty much all the Avent bottle and breast pump components that I own can fit in here with room to spare. And then you just put the top on. Obviously you want to make sure that it's not pointed up at anything that's going to get damaged, and also anywhere that you're going to be putting your hands anytime. So right around here, a couple of years ago, I got a really, really bad steam burn from a rice cooker. We had a rice cooker and we had some stuff behind it, and I was reaching to grab it, and I didn't realize the rice cooker was like fully on and venting steam, and I actually burnt the exact shape of the vent onto my arm, which really, really hurt. So I'm very careful about steam nowadays. You should be too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the electricity first. So first of all, I strongly recommend that you keep this thing unplugged whenever you're not using it. This switch is basically one push and then it's on. There's no cancel function. There's no turning it off. So if you pushed it in now, let's say you were putting it away and you accidentally pushed it, the next time you plug it in, it's automatically going to start going. So you want to be aware that basically this thing is like live and loaded as soon as there's electricity into it. So be very careful. In this case, I just ran it, so I know that this thing's not on. But as soon as I push this, it's going to start going. So for today's video, let's actually time how long it takes. It should be about 5 minutes once it starts boiling. So give or take 7 or 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Let's actually see. So ready, 3, 2, 1, go, and go. So I just ran this one a couple minutes ago. So it actually might start boiling a little bit faster because the heating element was on about 10 minutes ago. Let's see. It doesn't take that long to start boiling though. So already 30 seconds into it, you can hear it start to bubble and boil. So yeah, around 3 minutes you start seeing a lot of bubbles forming on the inside of the lid. Basically bubbles forming and popping continuously. Okay, now there's big drops of water forming on the inside of the lid, basically meaning that water's drilling down from the edges. And once in a while you can hear a drip or drop. Also, as this thing sort of heats up, it shifts around. And there we go, it's already stopped, and it's only been 6.5 minutes, give or take. Not too bad. So again, this one just ran, so a little bit faster. You want to be very careful before you lift this off. You want to let it sit for 2 or 3 minutes. This one we didn't see a lot of steam shooting out, but depending on the atmospheric conditions where you are, you probably can. Because I just ran it, it's actually super humid in here right now, so that probably has something to do with it. So as soon as that light goes off, you don't want to just grab this thing and open it because you get a face full of steam. It's still quite hot inside, and it's also sterile inside, so if you don't need to open it right away once it's cooled off, there's no need to do it right away. Supposedly this thing can be sterile inside if it's not opened for up to 24 hours. So if you're not going to pump again tonight, you don't need the bottles until tomorrow, just leave it in there, and then that way tomorrow you don't have to worry about it. You can just take it straight out and use it. And if you have multiple bottles in there, let's say you're going to pump at work or whatever, again, I'm not an expert, but this is what I've read, you can use that cover, use obviously the ring and the nipple and whatnot, seal the bottle while it's empty and still sterile, and then use it at work when you're pumping or whatever when you're there. So yeah, that's just a key note. I've let it sit now for about 2 minutes, so let's open it up and of course open it away from you. Now you can see a lot of steam coming out. And this should be the water dripping all the way down to that hot plate, and you can hear it's still pretty hot, so you want to be really careful. There's a good amount of steam in there, extra water. In this case, because we're not actually going to be having any babies drink from this, I'm going to put this down here, but you probably want to keep it this way, just so you don't have to worry about cleaning it. And then you can use this ring little holder here to get this guy out. And let's take a look. Still steam coming out. This part, it's all super wet and warm. Everything's still pretty steamy and wet. And there's still water evaporating off of that heating element, so I'm not even going to pick it up. But basically the water, the 100 milliliters, is 99% gone. So as you can see, there is a little bit of water here left after you pick everything off. That's actually not from when it was running. That was from when it stopped, and some of that water condensed and ran back down, especially when I lifted it off, you could hear it. So that's super easy to just wipe down or just pick everything up and let it air dry. You see some scale or residue on the hot plate. This is not that bad. There's some pictures you can see online of like really bad ones. That has to do with what's in your water. So if you're just going to use regular tap water to run this thing, which is totally fine because it's boiling, it doesn't matter what might have been in your tap water before when it came out of the pipe. Hopefully it's not that bad, but by the time it's boiled off, it's basically just steam. But there might have been other things like minerals in your water, and that will basically kind of calcify here on the hot plate. And so that's considered what's called scale. And it's actually not that hard to clean off. So even if you just use a towel, some of it will come off. But what they recommend is you use white vinegar and water solution, and you let it sit there for, I don't know, a while until it starts dissolving out, and then you just wipe off whatever's left. So there'll be some dissolved goo that you can wipe off with a paper towel. Besides scale, some people have noted that there might be a smell, like a burnt smell at the end. I haven't really noticed that. I think it really depends on what's in your water and what's left over at the end of this cycle. So I just recommend keeping it clean, and you don't really have to worry about that much. Okay, so that's basically it for the demonstration of how it works. Let me just wrap up with a couple other things. Cost-wise, this goes right now in Hong Kong for about $75. It's probably cheaper in North America or Europe, but that's not too unreasonable of a price. This is the 3-in-1. There's actually a 4-in-1 and also a 2-in-1 in the Philips Avent line. The 4-in-1, I didn't really look at the 2-in-1 that much, but the 4-in-1 is almost identical as far as the size and capacity goes and how it works. The main difference is it has a little bit fancier switch with some extra lighting on there. So it shows you when it's steaming versus when it's cooling off or something like that. The big difference is that it has a extra basket that goes, I guess, in either part, and that can go into your dishwasher, and basically you can put all your nipples and your rings and whatnot into that thing, run the dishwasher, and then go straight from there into one of these guys and then just run it. So yeah, that's kind of nice if you have a dishwasher, but we don't even have a dishwasher here because nobody in Hong Kong has at least like a full-on dishwasher like you'd see in North America. So anyway, not a big deal for me. It's probably a little bit more expensive. I didn't even look at the price. But basically the 3-in-1 I think is almost as good, and it's pretty good. 2-in-1 I'm sure is basically just lower capacity. They also have a microwave version, which is basically just like a round tray with a dome on top with a similar kind of caddy type thing, and you can only put, I believe, 3 bottles, and even the bigger bottles you can still fit in, but you can basically put 3 bottles plus 3 obviously sets of nipples and whatnot. So if you're going to use like the pump and stuff, you can only fit, I think, even maybe just 1 bottle or 2 bottles at most. So keep that in mind. Capacity wise, this one's way better. Pros and cons of the microwave. The other pro is that it's a lot faster. It's 2 minutes in the microwave, depending on the power of your microwave, plus I think 2 or 3 minutes of cool down. So overall, your round trip speed from nothing to sanitized bottle is a bit faster in that one. But this is not that bad. We did it pretty much in 7 minutes plus some cool down, right? So maybe 9 or 10 minutes total. Yeah, not bad. The other thing is obviously counter space. So you have to devote counter space to this guy. It's kind of too bulky and it'll get messy when there's water and whatnot to put away every single time. Obviously, because it's hot, you have to wait for it to cool off anyway. So it's probably better to leave out, somewhere near a plug. But again, don't forget to unplug it. So in this case, you're devoting counter space, you're sacrificing counter space, but then again, you're also sacrificing a lot of other stuff when you decide to have a baby. So get used to it. This is the least of your concerns as far as sacrifices go. So that's the main stuff. Overall, again, I'm pretty happy. One thing I'm not happy about, and I'll just mention this, probably doesn't matter to you, but it really matters to me. This guy, at least the couple years old one, made in Turkey, which is something I definitely, if I knew about it, I wouldn't buy it. But again, I didn't buy it. It was a gift. But yeah, not a big fan of Turkey, but that's a whole nother story. If you're Turkish and you want to know why, feel free to leave a message and I'll explain exactly why. Anyway, thanks very much for your time, and thank you everyone who has subscribed, and thank you for the guys who leave comments. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, do leave them in the comment section below. I'm always happy to help. Thank you everyone who's helped this channel get to where it is. It's been, well, now my son is almost 3.5, probably 3.5 by the time you see this. The very first video I did way back in December 2016 was actually for Philips Avent for the bottles and also the pump. And so it's nice to come back to that line, which has pretty much done well for me. And I want to share my positive experience with you guys. So leave a comment. See you guys later. Bye.
Hello and welcome to the Anal Retentive Carpenter. I'm Gene.
Having the stroller with me all the time up in the overhead bin. As soon as we get off the plane, pull it out, unfold it, and walk off. Literally that could save you 15-20 minutes right there.